Hello everyone, this is Mr. Storm. I took a quick look on YouTube for classroom management videos that will teach teachers how to just basically manage their classrooms in an effective way. And what I found were two different categories. One, hour-long videos with long, drawn-out explanations and things that just probably won't work in every classroom. It's kind of hard to get through. Or two, shorter videos with like one or two little tips in them that, yeah, were good, but didn't quite cover everything that I thought should be covered. So what I'm going to do is I'm creating a series of videos all focused on classroom management, talking about individual strategies, things to do to make it so that you can avoid some of these outbursts in the first place. That's what this first video is about, by the way. We're going to talk about preventing behaviors from becoming distractions in your classroom before they even start. So we want to make sure we cut them off before they even begin, okay? So today, that is our focus. Let's talk about classroom management prevention strategies. So the first thing we need to discuss is your mindset, okay? There are only three things that you can directly control in your life, okay? Those things are what you do, what you say, and how you think. Now, some of us can't even do those things, okay? Some of us have a really hard time controlling what we say. Some of us have a really hard time controlling how we think. As a teacher, your job, number one, is to create a safe environment for students. If you are the problem, meaning you cannot control your own outbursts, you are anything that comes to your head just pops out of your mouth. This is something you really need to work on, okay? Controlling your own behavior is step number one. We're not really even getting into the strategies yet. This is just before you even become a teacher, all right? You need to have patience. You need to be able to stop yourself from saying the thing you know is going to be a bad thing, right? But this also means that you can't control other people either. Some people get the idea that classroom management is all about controlling the students, right? Making them behave in a certain way. And it's not, okay? Because you cannot control students. They're not you, right? You're only responsible for your own behavior. So I can't tell you how many times I've heard teachers complain about, well, since COVID, kids are just out of control. There's no way. There's just, they just can't control themselves. Like you just can't do anything about it. Or things like, parents these days, they just don't parent their kids. They need to teach their kids discipline, and I can't do that job. I can't teach them how to, be disciplined if the parents won't do it. It makes no sense, and it's a waste of time for you to complain about other people's behavior that you have no control over. All you can do is do the best you can to create an environment in which some of these behaviors will be mitigated before they even begin. So how do we do that? There are three main ways that I choose to think about this prevention strategies. So number one, have a plan, okay? You have to have a planned and managed classroom in order to prevent chaos. So plan your lessons so that there is no downtime in your lesson. When kids come to class, they should be working from the moment they sit in their seats until the bell rings for them to go to their other class or go home. All right, there should be some kind of activity planned for them every day. If kids are busy, they're much less likely to cause issues in your classroom, okay? A lot of behaviors come from kids just not knowing what they're supposed to do. And so if you give them free time, say, hey, you guys are done with your quiz, you got 15 minutes left in class, do whatever you want. That unstructured time can cause a lot of issues that you just asked for by giving them that free time. This doesn't necessarily mean you can't have fun activities in your class, but you want to avoid the strategy where I have a 60-minute class, I only plan for 35 minutes of it, I don't know what else to do, so just kind of take a nap, right? You want to avoid that. So have more things planned for your class period than you're going to be able to get through. That way you have something to do for those kids if you reach the point where you have 10 minutes left. One thing that also helps, the last 2 minutes of class I've found can be a problem if the kids are just waiting for the bell to ring and they're standing and they're waiting by the door. If they're just standing there by the door with one foot out the door, just waiting for the bell to ring so they can run down the hallway, that can cause some issues as well. Go to your door, stand there, and have them do something while they're waiting for the bell to ring. Pick up around their chair, put their chairs in, whatever it is. I teach in a computer lab, so delete your files, log out, all those things, right? And stand at the door so there's no kids standing there just waiting to leave. And you can, fist bump them as they leave the classroom, that build a personal connection, but you're also letting them know, hey, you're not leaving this classroom until I say so, right? So that way the kid's not in control of when they leave. You are. Okay, attention-getting devices. Attention-getting devices are really incredibly important, and not enough teachers use them, in my opinion. We do not want silent classrooms. When kids are independently working, you want to allow them to be able to work and converse and talk and socialize and do all the things. But sometimes it's going to get loud and you need to get their attention, or you need to refocus them from one activity to another. A lot of early teachers, a lot of young teachers, what I see them do is it starts getting out of control. They start feeling frazzled and I need to control the situation. It's insane. The kids are laughing and playing and being joyful. That's not what school should be like. And then they get to a point where they go, hey, be quiet. Right. They start yelling at the kids. All right, I had to back away from my mic. I didn't want to blow your ears out. That doesn't work, right? You're basically showing the kids that you're volatile, that you are easily manipulated, and that you are less safe. You're not a safe adult for them to entrust, right? Raising your voice can be meaningful and can be useful at certain points, but rarely in the classroom. So an attention-getting device allows you to circumvent that entire process. If kids are getting loud, now obviously this has to be practiced in your classroom, but if kids are getting loud, you can say a command and they respond with a command in kind. For example, my attention-getting device is I say Avengers and the students say assemble, right? And I teach high school. Is it corny? Yeah, probably. Do the kids think I'm a dork? I hope so, right? But it's effective. They understand what I need from them whenever I use that word, when I say that word. The nice thing is I don't have to raise my voice, right? If I say it, just Avengers, the 6 or 7 kids that are closer to me that can hear it, they'll stop talking and they'll turn and look. And then I just say it again, same volume, Avengers. And then more kids will start realizing what's going on and they'll turn and pay attention. It never takes 4 times, right? Usually 3 times. Everybody has I have everyone's full attention and they're done talking and they're looking at me. Here's another thing this avoids as well. As human beings, when we're in the middle of a conversation, if I'm in the middle of a sentence and I go to say something, but someone yells at me to stop talking, I'm going to want to finish my sentence. That's just a normal human thing. So I'm going to want to finish what I'm saying, but if you're yelling and you want them to comply now, the kid's going to keep talking and they're going to get in trouble. It's going to raise and escalate or whatever. If you understand that it's going to take a minute for them to all refocus, then there's no complaint there, right? You just say your attention-getting device. Now, there are hundreds of articles out there about good ones to use. Make it a part of your personality. I use Avengers Assemble because I'm a really big fan of Marvel movies, right? I love Star Wars as well, so I can switch it up to be like, may the Force, and the kids say, be with you, whatever it is, right? Make it a part of your personality. But that will keep you from yelling at students and yelling at classes for being too loud. All right. Classroom procedures. Every classroom has procedures for going from one mode to another, right? You have your learning mode, you have work mode, you have test mode, you have procedures for turning in homework, you have procedures for asking to use the restroom, you have procedures for taking attendance. There are tons of procedures. Practice those procedures and keep them consistent on day one. There's kind of a security in knowing what is expected of you at any given moment when we're in a classroom. So students want to know that you're not changing your procedures over and over again. And if they're stable, then there's no way for them to accidentally break a rule that they didn't know existed, right? Or not do a procedure the way you wanted them to because you changed it halfway through the semester and they were gone that day. Set your procedures, teach your procedures, practice your procedures often. That goes along with setting clear expectations for day one. I don't like the idea of having class rules because rules tend to be more of an authoritarian thing, and I don't like my classroom to feel like I'm the ruler and you have to listen to me. But I do let them know that I have expectations for their behavior in the classroom, and I make sure that they're clear, right? My expectations are for them to be professional. I want a professional product from you. I want you to speak professionally, behave professionally, and turn in professional level work. I want you to be responsible. Responsibility means that you're coming into class on time. You are not bothering the people around you. You're wearing the clothes you're supposed to wear, those kinds of things. And I want you to be respectful. And we have a very long conversation about respect. I'll probably have a separate video about what respect is and why a lot of teachers use it the wrong way. I'll probably do that later. But those are clear expectations. And if a kid is violating one of those expectations, I can say, hey, look, we discussed about being professional. You making fart noises the whole time while I'm trying to teach, that's not very professional. So you're not meeting that expectation that I'm looking for. I'm not telling him he's breaking a rule, right? When kids hear they've broken a rule or they're in trouble, they start freaking out, right? But not meeting an expectation, that implies that there's room for growth, right? You haven't met this expectation, but here's some ways you can do it differently in the future and meet that expectation. And then the last one for this part is just to have a plan, seriously, or just to simplify your plan. I see teachers with very complicated procedures for turning in homework. I see teachers with very complicated rules, very complicated everything, right? How do I turn in this assignment? What do I do with this? How do I do that? Simplify, okay? Make it so that kids understand exactly what they're expected to do, and it's not so complicated that they cannot follow those rules. All right. Number 2, be kind. Now, I hear some of you already saying, look, I'm a nice person. I'm nice to my students all the time, and some of them are just jerks, and they yell at me, and they scream at me, and they like to make me cry, and I drink too much, and all this stuff, right? I get it, right? But if you're not kind, just as a rule, you're going to ask for a lot more of these issues than are necessary. Some teachers like to control their classroom by getting compliance through fear, right? If I'm strict and I'm angry and the kids don't want to make me angry and you better not because I'm going to write you up and all that stuff, it might work for a little while, but what you're doing is you're just asking them to foment rebellion. And as soon as they do, you're the target, you're the enemy, right? And they're fighting against you. They're going to be able to team up and gang up against you. I've seen it happen in too many classrooms. Just be a kind person. Be genuinely interested in them, right? So first up, no profanity, no rude language, right? Look, you might swear like a sailor outside of your classroom. Fine. That's okay. I don't care. I'm not judging you, right? But if you expect your classroom to be a professional environment, keep it professional with your language, right? Don't be rude to students. Some students, you can kind of tease them a bit. And that's, I don't know, their love language, I guess is the right way to put it. But most students aren't that way. And so you got to know which students you can do that with and which students you can't. I wouldn't start day one by giving everybody nicknames like, hey, you're going to be Four Eyes. You're going to be Two-Face. You're going to be whatever. I wouldn't do that, right? Some students might get a kick out of it, but some students are going to feel isolated from it. It's the same thing with profanity, right? There are a lot of students that grow up in houses that never use that kind of language. And if you're using it regularly, then it's going to feel kind of, you're not communicating the message you want to communicate, right? This one is one that's kind of hard to get right, to get perfect, but you have to practice this. Criticize in private, praise in public. I notice a lot of teachers do the opposite. They criticize in public, but they give, good feedback and praise to students when no one else is around. I don't know why this is. I think some people are more comfortable being critical than they are just being genuinely appreciative of someone. But if you ever find yourself trying to correct a student's behavior by dressing them down in front of an entire class, you've lost the battle. If someone's messing around in class and hey, cut that out. You're not supposed to do that. Blah, blah, blah. You've targeted that student. Now that student is not going to reflect on their own behavior, right? Because now they're being attacked. We don't have time to reflect on our behavior if we're being attacked. The only thing we have time for, the only thing we have mental space for, is either fight or flight. And that's it. When you put a kid in defense mode, they're either going to fight, meaning they're going to attack you back and defend themselves, or they're going to leave, okay? Which causes a bigger issue because now you have a student roaming the halls and they're keyed up, they're angry. So you want to keep kids out of that fight or flight. We don't want to make kids frightened, right? We don't want to embarrass kids either and shame them in front of their peers. That girl that he just asked to homecoming, who hasn't said yes yet but is thinking about it, she's sitting 3 seats down from him, and now you're calling him an idiot because he can't follow your 5 rules that you put on the board, right? It's not cool. These are people. They're people, all right? If you wouldn't do this to a stranger, if you wouldn't do this to a friend, if you wouldn't do this to someone in your family, don't do it to one of these students, okay? If they're behaving in a way that you don't expect or that you want them to stop, there are strategies for doing that in the moment, which will be the subject of another video. But if kids know that you're the kind of person that does that, your room is not a safe environment. Now, on the flip side, in public, it's great to tell students, hey man, that was a great answer, right? You ask a question in class, kid gives a great answer. That was an awesome answer. Thank you for that. I appreciate that you're here, you're thinking, you're ready to go, you're into it. I love that. This is great. This is awesome. Wow, you're so smart. Give kids positive feedback in front of their peers. They might be embarrassed by it, but they're going to like it. I promise you, okay? They'll feel good because you're recognizing that they did something that they should have. Now, here's where it gets tricky. You don't want to praise kids in public for doing the right thing after they haven't been doing the right thing for a long time, obviously. So here's what I mean by that. Let's say you have a kid who has problems coming to class on time, okay? And they're late every day. They've been late every day the whole month. And then they come to class on time one day. If you stop the class to say, you know what? I'm really glad you came to class on time today. That's fantastic. You're here. Wow, that's amazing. Oh, great. That just comes off like you're being a jerk. One, you're pointing out the fact that they weren't on time in the past. And two, it doesn't sound sincere. It sounds like you're being sarcastic. So you got to be careful with this. But praise, genuine praise in the moment, if a kid does something that you generally want to reinforce that behavior, positive reinforcement is great. So Criticize in private, praise in public. Now, in terms of criticizing in private, here's the best way to do that. Let's say a kid's misbehaving in class, ask them to go out in the hallway, and have a conversation one-on-one. You're taking them out of the situation where they have an audience. They're much less likely to be confrontational in a situation where it's just you two. And you can say, you can bring the level of aggression down. You can bring the tone down by just saying, hey, I noticed you were a bit distracted in there. Is there something going on today? Am I doing something that's causing you to not be able to focus on this lesson? Is it too boring for you or whatever? You turn it into, we're trying to fix this problem together, as opposed to you are the problem, right? It's me and you versus the problem, not I'm versus, me versus you. Anyway, there's more to be said about that, but I'll save it for another video. One big thing is admitting your mistakes. I've seen a lot of teachers who will make a mistake in class and a kid will point it out. Hey, you didn't give us this, the worksheet, or the slides aren't where you told us it was supposed to be, so we couldn't do the study guide over the weekend or whatever. And I've seen teachers take that personally and feel like they're being attacked and just start yelling at the kids, right? You're going to make mistakes. Everybody does, right? I've been teaching for a decade. I make mistakes all the time. Point out the fact that, you know what? I made a mistake. You're right. Hey, you guys didn't have to do your homework this weekend. Fantastic. I'll set aside time later so we can go over that. I thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate that. That's my fault. Admit your mistakes. Don't turn it into you're disrespecting me because you are telling me that I didn't do my job right? I mean, we're all doing the best we can. You're going to make a mistake. You should praise students who will point those out for you so it can help you to be better in the future. Admit your mistakes, apologize, move on. Laugh with your students. Tell jokes. Tell stories. Tell them about your weekend. If something funny happened, tell them about it. Ask them about their day. Hey, what did you do? What's the dumbest thing you've ever done? Stuff like that. If by the end of a semester you haven't developed some inside jokes with a couple of students, what are you even doing, right? Especially if you teach teenagers. These kids are funny. They're really funny. And so some of the personalities, this is the best reason, this is the greatest part of this job, right? So you should be, talking to them, getting to know them, having shared jokes and camaraderie together. It's going to help to cut down on a lot of this behavior stuff. And the last one, look, this can sound a bit sexist. I know. It's always creepy whenever a guy's like, hey, baby, you should smile more, right? That's not what I'm saying, okay? I'm saying that people do trust others that smile and genuinely look like they're having a good time. If you're enthusiastic, if you're happy, if you're like, hey, I'm just happy to see you. If you're smiling, kids are way more likely to give you the benefit of the doubt, to not want to be the aggressor in a situation. Kids can, as they put it, match your vibe, right? They can match your vibe really easily. So if you come into class and you're angry and you're slamming stuff around and hey, you all shut up and just do your work. You know what you're supposed to be doing. They will match your vibe and they'll bring that back to you. But if you're happy and you're, hey, everything's good, you're easy breezy, you're not super stressed, you're, fist bumping kids, hey, how you doing, man? How was your weekend? They'll match that vibe. And it might be a safe environment for them if the rest of their day is going bad. But now they're in your room where they get to chill. Like, they're still learning, they're still doing things, but at least I know this is an adult that isn't going to scream in my face if I make a stupid mistake, right? So smile, be happy, be energized, be genuinely glad to see them. All right, and the final point is to know your students. This is one of the biggest things for preventing behavior issues. Getting to know your students on a personal basis, building a relationship with them can keep them from wanting to violate that relationship, right? I have many students that I have really great relationships with that just they're problems in almost every other class. But in my class, they're great. You know, we laugh, we joke, they do the work, they try their best because they're matching my vibe, and they know that if they make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. I'm not going to be mad at them and yell at them. I'm probably going to laugh it off. And they don't want to do something that's going to hurt the relationship that we have because they like me. They know that I like them. I'm a safe adult, right? So you have to get to know your students, know their strengths and their limitations. Part of this comes with if your student is on a specialized plan, like an individual education plan, an IEP, or a behavioral intervention plan, things like this, you've got to know that stuff, right? That's period, full stop. You have to know what accommodations and what behavioral interventions you need to use for those students. You have to know it, but know what their strengths are. If you have a kid in your class that's really good at basketball and they're on the basketball team and they're really good at, start, praise them for that. Ask them about it. Use their leadership skills in class. I mean, just know your students. You also want to try to include their interests and their culture into your classroom. Okay. I do this, first you got to know what their interests are, right? One thing that I do is I'll send out a survey the first week or so, asking them things like, what are your top 3 favorite songs right now? What are your favorite movies? What books are you reading? What's your favorite TV show? Just stuff like that. General questions, send me your favorite meme or whatever, right? Just to get a sense of what they're into, right? Because I'm 38 years old. There's no way I'm going to be able to figure out what teenagers are into if I don't just ask the question. And it can be corny, right? Kids will see through it. Like they just filled out a thing and it says they like anime. And then all of a sudden you're putting anime in your lessons and they're like, wait, I see what you're doing. But it's a good thing, right? Teachers are supposed to be corny. Okay. So don't be afraid to be corny. All right. Try to use the slang. That's always weird. But, my take on that is usually like, I just pretend like I don't understand what it is. And I'm just like, hey guys, I'm old and out of touch. And they laugh and then they explain stuff to me. It's whatever. But use their interests in your lesson plans when you're talking to them. One thing that I do is I play music during independent work time. And I have a playlist where I take those songs that kids give me, like, what are your favorite songs? If there's a song that's mentioned a lot, I'll take those songs and put them on my playlist. So it'll pop up while they're listening to the music or while they're working and stuff. Cultures as well. If you have a class that is very culturally diverse, learn about those students' cultures. Try to incorporate, ask them questions about their culture. Now, you don't want to be, overly bearing about it, obviously, but, be genuinely curious and try to see if there's any cultural differences that you might, that might cause problems if you're not aware of them. This is a big one. Be neutral in politics and social issues. This is a tough one, especially in high school and especially in years where there are a lot of, let's say, presidential election years, or if there's a lot of stuff going on socially, kids want to talk about that stuff and kids have opinions about that stuff as well. I found that it's not a good idea for you as an adult to give your opinion in those matters. Some school districts completely don't allow for it at all. My take on this is I just want to genuinely hear their opinion, but I don't need to share mine. right? So if a kid comes up to me and like, hey man, can you believe that like they indicted Trump and he's going to go to jail and they're telling me about it. And I go, wow, that's interesting. That's pretty interesting. What you seem like you feel strongly about it. Yeah, I mean, it's so messed up. It's crazy. What do you think? I think it's an interesting situation. The word interesting can do a lot of work for you in these situations. You don't have to give your opinion, but you can still be genuinely concerned, or not concerned, but genuinely curious about what that kid has to say about that subject. Remember, these are kids. They're not going to have these great, fully formed opinions on politics. And you might want to go back and forth with them and debate them. It's not worth it, man. It's totally not worth it. And you run the risk of alienating that student, or that student thinking that you are the other, right? And so you're no longer a safe adult. Could get yourself in a lot of legal issues depending on where you teach. So I would just avoid that subject altogether. Hey, that's interesting. All right. I'm glad you're paying attention to what's going on in the world. This is it's good. Not a lot of kids your age know about these stories, so that's interesting. Good work. Yeah, be neutral. Communicate with parents often. You should be sending emails home on a regular basis. Now, a lot of parents are just going to ignore emails, but if you have a record of you at least trying to communicate with parents, that's going to help you in the long run. Some parents will read those communications. Now, if it's just a standard, like, this is what we're doing next week or whatever, most parents ignore that. But if the communication is more personal, like, hey, I'm your son's teacher, I'm your daughter's new teacher, I would really like to get to know your student. So if you have any information that could help me better do my job, I want to work together with you so that we can help your student succeed. And this is especially important when you have behavior issues consistently from one kid. Email the parent right off the top. Hey, this is what happened in class today, but kids are kids. You made a mistake. What can we do to help him to not make that mistake in the future? I'm on your side. I'm working with you. I'm trying to help. Communication with parents is key. If the parents know you and they like you, they're much less likely to come to the school and I demand a meeting with your principal and why did you single out my kid? Why did you blah, blah, blah? No, just communicate with the parents. Let them know this is who I am. These are my intentions. This is what I want to do. If I make a mistake, please let me know. I'm going to do my best to teach your kid the thing that I'm supposed to teach them, and make sure they understand that you know that the kid's most important teacher in their life are the parents, right? You're not going to do their job for them, but you're here to work together with them to help build a strong person, okay? So communicate often with parents. I don't generally call, but if you need to, if you feel like that's important, you can do that. I mainly communicate through email. And the reason why I don't call is because there's no record of that conversation. It's the military person in me. I like to have a record of everything. So I generally just email, but email works fine. Most parents aren't going to ever respond to your emails. That's fine. You're at least opening those lines of communication. All right. And the final tip, always assume the best of your students. If a kid makes a mistake, assume it was a mistake. Don't assume he did it on purpose. I don't think any kid wakes up in the morning and thinks, you know what? I can't wait to go to school and get in trouble today, right? Most kids, they make mistakes because something else happened. Think about it like this. Behavior is not the disease. It's a symptom of the disease. If you're constantly just treating the symptom, stopping the behavior, but you're not figuring out what's causing that symptom and trying to fix that, you're never going to get anywhere. You're just going to have a sick patient, right? So behavior is usually a symptom of something. Assume that something is not malicious intent, right? Again, kids, they say things that you wish they wouldn't say. They do things you wish they wouldn't do. They are going to break your heart. They are going to break your trust. They're going to fall short of your expectations. But it doesn't mean they're bad kids. And you shouldn't assume that they're bad just because they made a mistake, right? Assume that they tried their best and something else got in the way, right? That way, it's whenever you're having these conversations, it's not, hey, you're a bad kid. It's, hey, man, you made a mistake. Let's see what we can do about avoiding that in the future. Or, I noticed that you're a little bit keyed up today. Are you having a rough morning? What's going on? Kids want to know that they're not the problem, that they're like cared for, right? And that the problem is the behavior itself, which we can fix later. But I want to make sure that you, as a person, are safe and happy and healthy. Safe, happy, healthy kids, they're less likely to cause behavior issues in the classroom. So assume the best of your students. If a kid makes a mistake, it's just a mistake. Not a big deal. We all make them all the time. If a kid said something mean to you, I'm not going to take it personally. I assume there's something else going on. I don't think you actually think that I'm bald and fat, even though I am. I'm not going to take it personally, right? I'm going to pretend like it was a joke. We're going to move on. I'm going to give you the grace and understanding to avoid negative consequences for some mistakes. And we're going to work on fixing the problems that are causing these mistakes together as a team. All right. Now, this video is almost 40 minutes long. I've been rambling for a long time. I have so much to say about all of this stuff, but I'm going to make more videos in this series that talk more in depth about some of these strategies. But these are all strategies for just preventing bad behavior. Notice we didn't really talk about what happens if behavior happens in your classroom. How do you deal with it? That'll be a completely separate video. Again, this is a very complicated topic, and I want to make sure that we discuss it in depth. So if you like this content, please let me know. I'll keep making more of it. Thank you for paying attention.